I really want us all to celebrate Red Taylor's version. So the day that I'm filming this, it's a Friday, and it is the 1-week anniversary of Red Taylor's version. So I really wanted to take today to celebrate this amazing re-release of my favorite album. And I wanted to give some recommendations for books that reminded me of Red Taylor's version. So I'm not going to go through every single song on the album and pair it with a book, because that would literally take forever, not only to film, but to like put together and research, because oh my gosh, there are so many songs on this album. I also have the album with me right now in physical form. I got the CD, I want to say 2 days ago in the mail, and I am so excited to finally have it. It's so beautiful. And we'll do just like a little quick tour of the actual inside of the album. Look at how beautiful that is. And then this side flips out to the second CD. Oh, it's so cute. I love it so much. So I feel like I should also talk about some of my favorite songs on this album, specifically some of the vault tracks that I really love. So of course with this album there are some extra songs that were not included on the original release of the album, and 2 of those songs are some of my favorite Taylor songs of all time, but they weren't done by Taylor originally, but she gave them to other artists like Sugarland and Little Big Town. So those 2 songs are Babe and Better Man, 2 of my favorite songs on the album. I love them so much. I am so glad that we finally have Taylor singing these songs by herself on her album, and I'm just so glad that they're finally just hers fully. I do have to say that I love the Sugarland version of Babe. It's such a good song, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's on my Spotify Wrapped for this year, because I did listen to that song on repeat all the time. And then another vault track that has just been destroying me lately is Nothing New featuring Phoebe Bridgers. I love that song so much, and I love Phoebe Bridgers. She's like one of my favorite artists from last year and also this year. I've just been getting deeper and deeper into her music, and I love it so much. I'm so glad that Taylor decided to feature Phoebe Bridgers on this album. It worked so perfectly, and the duet is just so beautiful. I love their voices together, and the song itself just hits me in a very deep and personal way. I also really do like I Bet You Think About Me. That one took a little bit for me to warm up to it, but it finally grew on me and I just love it. I also do like Run featuring Ed Sheeran. I thought that one was really good, and The Very First Night, and also Message in a Bottle. I think those were both really cute songs. And then of course All Too Well 10-minute version. That one is just absolutely incredible. If you've been on my TikTok at all recently, you'll notice that I made probably like 4 or 5 TikToks specifically about All Too Well. I love that song so much, and I don't think I realized how much I loved that song until Taylor's version. Like I knew I always loved that song. It was a gorgeous song. It's just so artistic and beautiful, and I just love the storytelling in it. But it wasn't until I heard the 10-minute version that I truly appreciated it. And then with a short film accompanying it, it just works so perfectly. I don't know how she did it, but she did, and I'm so grateful for that. I love this song. I cannot stop listening to it. Overall, I think that this re-recording is just so incredible. It's better than I could have even imagined it being, and I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I actually like this re-recording a little bit more than the Fearless re-recording. I do, however, think that I might like the Fearless vault tracks a little bit more than the Red vault tracks overall, even though this has Babe and Better Man and All Too Well. I do think that I might like the vault tracks from Fearless a bit more consistently. Also, if you want to know what I'm drinking, my mom went and got me the red cup yesterday from Starbucks, the reusable one that was free yesterday, because I did not leave the house yesterday, so she went and got it for me, thankfully, and I'm drinking a peppermint mocha. It's really good. All right, now that we've talked a little bit about Red Taylor's version as an album, I want to share with you all 6 books that I think are really reminiscent of Red Taylor's version. So the first one for me is just a classic Red album. I first read this when I was about 18 or 19, and I listened to the album Red the entire time I read this book, and it just fit so perfectly. Whenever I listen to this album, I think of this book, and that is Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour. Also, this book is really special to me because it is the first ever sapphic book that I had ever read, ever, at that point in my life. I actually remember going into this book, I didn't really have any idea that it was sapphic or queer at all. I just thought it was going to be just like, you know, YA contemporary. I don't remember anybody necessarily mentioning that it was sapphic back like on BookTube or anything. And if they did, maybe I just missed it. But I genuinely did not know what to expect when I went into this book. But I love this book, and I love Nina LaCour as an author. She just writes some of my favorite sapphic books ever, and just favorite books in general. This one really feels like Red to me. This one feels like the songs on Red that are like Treacherous, Holy Ground, Red, the song, Everything Has Changed, even like a little bit of All Too Well. It just has such a great vibe and a really great range of emotions similar to the album. So basically this book is about Emmy, and she lives in Los Angeles, and one summer her brother leaves her his house and is like, hey, if you want to live here for the summer, that's great, go ahead. And Emmy happens to be a production designer already in Hollywood. She hasn't really gotten her big break yet. She hasn't really done anything big, but she's really wanting to do that for her career. So while she's going through an estate sale for her job, she ends up finding these letters from an old Hollywood star and uncovers all of these really long-held secrets about this Hollywood star and his family. And so it's a really interesting book. I love the romance in here. I love the main character. I think that she's so much fun. And one of my favorite things about this book is that there are moments within the narrative where we kind of step away from Emmy and we look at the movie that she's currently working on, and we'll see kind of like parts of the script in there, and it's just so cinematic and beautiful. I think that the storytelling in this book is just so effective and definitely is very reminiscent of Red Taylor's version. This next book is another one that will just always remind me of Red, and that is Annalee in Real Life by Janelle Milanes. And I talk about this book a lot because it is one of my favorite books of all time. I've read it multiple times and I've loved it each time. I feel like I discover something new every time I reread it, and that's what makes it so special. It also has such a really great, unique ending for a YA fluffy contemporary book. And it's really refreshing and definitely has a little bit of like All Too Well vibes to it. But basically this book is about Annalee, and she kind of feels like an outcast. She doesn't really fit in. She's fallen out with one of her best friends. And within the past few years, her mother has passed away from cancer. So one day she ends up overhearing this conversation between one of the most popular boys in school and his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend. They kind of have a falling out, and she overhears this. And he ends up giving Annalee this proposition to start fake dating in order to win back his ex-girlfriend. So as you all know, I am a total sucker for the fake dating trope. I love it so much, and it just works so well in this book. I think that especially with the ending, it definitely is a little bit emotional, but it is also a really great resolution to the story, and overall this book just feels very Red to me. The next book in this stack is Luster by Raven Leilani, and this is one that I actually mentioned in my TikTok, so is Annalee in Real Life. But I really feel like this reminds me of Red because this is about a young black woman in her 20s, and she is having this illicit affair with an older white man. One day, the wife of that man finds out about this affair and ends up agreeing to an open marriage with rules. And I feel like definitely the relationship between the main character and the older man definitely feels very Red to me, very All Too Well. A little bit of like The Moment I Knew. Same with like Better Man or Babe. It just has that kind of feeling to it. I really, really loved this book when I read it. It's just so beautifully written. I love the characters and how complex and just a little bit morally gray they are. They're not perfect characters, they're not perfect human beings, they don't have perfect relationships, and I think that's also something that is very reminiscent of Red. So yeah, if you're gonna read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, this is the one I recommend the most. The next book I feel like is just a great Taylor Swift recommendation for any mood, any vibe, any album, and that is Grace and the Fever by Zan Romanoff. I love this book. I just think it's a really, really awesome book, and because it deals so much with the music industry and artists and musicians and stuff like that, it just really fits with any kind of music related recommendation, whether it's Taylor Swift or the Jonas Brothers, One Direction, whatever. It just all kind of fits into this book. And basically this book is about Grace, and she is a fan of this really big boy band, boy group. And one day she ends up meeting one of the members of that group just kind of randomly out of the blue, and they strike up a conversation. They become very quick friends and ultimately develop a relationship. And similarly to most of these books, this one definitely gives me the vibes of like Holy Ground, State of Grace, All Too Well, The Moment I Knew, Come Back, Be Here. All of those songs definitely fit very well into Grace and the Fever. The next book I want to recommend is one of my favorites from this year, and that is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. Once again, this one just has the most perfect vibes for All Too Well. And I think similarly to Luster, a lot of it has to do with the fact that this main character, while she's in her 30s, she's also dating an older man, and there is definitely that maturity level difference between these two characters. And I really love this main character because she is very creative and she wants to live a life that is based around her creativity, which I feel like is very similar to Taylor Swift herself. So this is definitely another book that I could recommend for various Taylor Swift albums, but I do feel like this has a lot of Red, Taylor's version, in it. Basically, this book deals with Casey, the main character, and it is set in 1997. And this is after she has just gotten through with this very tumultuous love affair, and then she's also found out about her mother's sudden death. And soon after that, she ends up meeting these two men. One is kind of similar to her in age and is very creative. And then another one is a much older man, and she kind of ends up having these affairs with both of them. And I think similarly to some of the relationships that Taylor explores in Red, Taylor's version, is very similar to what happens not only in Writers and Lovers but also in Luster. These books deal with these younger women who are on very different life paths, you know, maturity levels than these older men that they are dating. And I think that that's something really interesting to explore, how that can be damaging to somebody, how that can be really complex and not very perfect at all. Even though you want it to be perfect, you want it to kind of be like it is in the movies, that fairy tale version, but you just get hit by reality really quickly. And the next one that I want to talk about is very similar to both Luster and Writers and Lovers, and that is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. That book just is straight up All Too Well Jake Gyllenhaal vibes, which makes sense because in Conversations, the main character is much younger. I think she's in her very, very early 20s, and she is having this affair with an older man, and he happens to be an actor. So I feel like it just gives very big Jake Gyllenhaal Taylor Swift vibes. I didn't absolutely love Conversations with Friends. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, which is not a bad rating at all, but it just wasn't my favorite as these other books were. I did want to include it because I do feel, like I said, it's very reminiscent of All Too Well. And also I feel like I almost have to include it because it's being turned into, I think, a TV show or possibly a limited series, something like that. And one of the people starring in that series is Joe Alwyn, and he is Taylor Swift's current boyfriend. So I just feel like it's very fitting. But yeah, don't let me dissuade you from reading Conversations with Friends. I do think it's a really great book. It wasn't fully my cup of tea, but overall I really liked the story. And if you are a big All Too Well fan, you might really enjoy that book. I really hope that I did my favorite Taylor Swift album justice. I love Red so much. It is such a good album. I low-key wish that I had bought it on vinyl. I would have loved to play it on my record player. I should have bought it. I totally regret not buying it. But maybe if somebody loves me enough, they can get it for me for Christmas. It might go on my list. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the recommendations that I had for this album and also my quick little opinions of the album. Overall, I loved it so much. I cannot stop listening to it, honestly. I can't stop watching the music videos for it, the short film, everything about it. I am just obsessed with Red, and I'm so glad that it's finally getting all the recognition that it has always deserved. Before I forget, leave in the comments down below one of your favorite songs from Red Taylor's version. I really want to know what you're all enjoying from this album. Or you can leave a red heart in the comments if you got this far. That would be awesome. And I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, TikTok, Storygraph. All of the links are going to be down below in the description, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye! I thought it'd be me and you.